Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to kick off our presentation today. Our first slide is titled Economics as a Social Science. On this cover slide, I just want to briefly introduce what we'll be exploring. We'll look into what economics really is, how it functions as a social science, and why that perspective matters. So, let's get started and dive into understanding the fascinating world of economics. Let's take a look at the contents of this presentation. First, we'll explore what economics truly is, understanding how societies allocate scarce resources to meet their needs and wants. Then, we'll discuss some of the challenges faced when trying to conduct scientific experiments in economics, which can be quite complex due to the nature of human behavior and market dynamics. Finally, we'll consider where we go from here, what the future holds for economic research, and how we can continue to improve our understanding of this fascinating field. Throughout this presentation, I hope to connect these points to give you a clearer picture of the role economics plays in our daily lives and the importance of overcoming these challenges to gain better insights. So let's start by understanding what exactly is meant by economics. At its core, economics is about how groups of individuals, people, communities, even nations make decisions. And these decisions are often about how to allocate scarce resources. Scarce resources are things like time, money, labor, and raw materials that are limited, which makes decision-making really important. Now, it's not just about numbers or markets. Economics is actually a social science. That means it studies societies and human behavior, trying to understand why people do what they do. To do that, economists use a variety of methods, including scientific methods, to analyze and interpret human actions and societal trends. So, in essence, economics helps us understand the choices people make and how those choices shape our world. This understanding ties directly into our overall theme of making informed decisions in a complex world. Let's talk about the scientific method. This approach uses abstract models to help us understand how a complex, real-world system actually operates. It's a way to simplify and make sense of things that might seem overwhelming at first. There are three main steps in this process. First, we postulate a theory or model, which means putting forward a hypothesis that can be tested and potentially refuted. It's important that our hypothesis is capable of being challenged so we can really test its validity. Next, we gather evidence. This is the crucial part where we collect data to support or refute our theory. This evidence guides us in understanding whether our hypothesis holds up or needs adjustments. Finally, based on the evidence, we decide whether to accept the theory as is, modify it to better fit the data, or refute it altogether. This continuous cycle helps us refine our understanding over time. Now, talking about models, these are simplified representations that economists use to cut through the complexity of reality. Models help us focus on the most important factors, making it easier to analyze and understand how the economy works. By using models and the scientific method together, we're able to build more accurate and useful explanations of economic phenomena. This is all about improving our grasp of the world around us and making more informed decisions. Let's talk about assumptions. First, we see that assumptions are crucial because they make the world easier to understand. By simplifying complex real-world situations, assumptions help economists build models that can answer specific questions more effectively. Without them, it would be nearly impossible to analyze how different parts of the economy interact. Now, moving to the second point, the role of assumptions. They essentially serve as a foundation for our models. Think of them as tools that allow us to focus on key factors without getting lost in every detail. This way, we can test ideas and see potential outcomes clearly. Finally, we have the concept of ceteris paribus, which is Latin for all other things remaining equal. This is a really important assumption in economics because, in reality, it's often hard to isolate every variable. When we assume ceteris paribus, we're saying, let's hold everything else constant so we can understand the effect of one specific change. This helps us analyze cause and effect more accurately, even though in the real world, everything is always changing. Let's take a closer look at some assumptions behind using models, as well as their pros and cons. Starting with the pros, One major advantage is that models can help forecast activities and support future analysis or policy decisions. They provide a clear, mathematical way to represent data, which can make complex information much easier to understand. Models also simplify complicated data, making it more accessible for us to interpret. This simplification not only helps in understanding, but also speeds up the analysis process. Additionally, models can help us isolate the effect of a specific variable, allowing us to examine causality, so we can better understand which factors are truly relevant and which are not. Now, on to the cons. One key issue is that the results can be biased if the creator of the model has certain assumptions or biases. Those can influence the outcomes. Also, assumptions that hold true in one setting might not apply in another, so models can sometimes be less valid across different contexts. Another important point is that models often assume complete rationality, meaning they assume individuals always act logically and optimally. But in reality, humans have bounded rationality, so their decision-making can be unpredictable. Even if a model predicts certain behavior, people might not act as expected. Furthermore, the quality of the output heavily depends on the quality of the input data. If the data is flawed or overly simplified, the results can be misleading or incorrect. So, while models are powerful tools, we must always be cautious and critically evaluate their assumptions and inputs to avoid drawing faulty conclusions. Now, let's talk about some of the key difficulties we face when trying to conduct scientific experiments in economics. First, there's the issue of creating a truly sterile environment. Unlike in the lab sciences, we can't isolate economic variables in a completely controlled setting. Then, there's the ethical concern. Even if it were possible to set up such a controlled environment, subjecting people's lives, jobs, or homes to experimental manipulation raises serious moral questions. Should economists really be gambling with people's livelihoods just for the sake of curiosity? Another challenge is that we can't pause the economy to examine a specific factor while keeping everything else constant. The economy is so complex that any change in one area often impacts many others, which can distort the results of any experiment. Establishing a control group is also incredibly difficult. Not all cities or countries are directly comparable. They differ in so many ways, making it hard to isolate the impact of a particular change. Plus, economic agents, people and organizations, have free will and imagination. They can react to the experiments or policies, which can lead to new behaviors that skew the results and make it hard to draw firm conclusions. And finally, there's the broader issue that no universal laws of human behavior exist. Human beings are so diverse, and their circumstances vary so much, that trying to find one-size-fits-all rules about resource allocation is simply not feasible. So all these factors combined show just how challenging it is to conduct rigorous, scientific experiments in economics, highlighting the complexity of understanding human economic behavior. So where do we go from here? Well, I encourage you to visit our website at www.smootheconomics.co, UK. There, you'll find a wealth of resources, enrichment materials, detailed information about our courses, and even opportunities to participate in competitions. It's a great way to deepen your understanding and stay engaged with economics beyond this presentation. And don't forget to connect with us on social media. You can find us on YouTube under Smooth Economics, where we share videos and tutorials. Follow us on Instagram at @SmoothEconomics for updates and insights, and on Twitter at @SmoothEconomics for the latest news and discussions. We're also active on Facebook at @Smooth Economics. These platforms are perfect for staying connected, continuing your learning journey, and engaging with a community of like-minded enthusiasts. So, I really encourage you to explore these options and keep the conversation going. It's all about making economics accessible and interesting, and we want to support you every step of the way.